Hey everyone, welcome to the show today, My So-Called Fabulous. I'm Tiffany, and we are here because you ask me this question so much, and even though I am not, this isn't my specialty at this phase of my life, dating. Okay, I've dated a few people for sure, but my friend that's been on the show, this is her third time. We have talked about divorce, fashion, and now we're talking about dating because she's doing it. So everyone, welcome to the show. Heather Anderson,
Hi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. You came over from Dallas. You have So Heather blog. If you're not following her, she'll be in the show notes. She is YouTube queen. I watch her get ideas all the time, and you should too. But we're here to talk about this. And my demographic for this show and my platform is women, primarily 18 to 65.
Okay.
And we are talking about dating in our 50s. And I just crossed the hurdle to 60. I just not sure how
you do not look like it. You look amazing.
Thank you. I don't know how I crossed that hurdle. I'm just like, where did the time go?
I know, time flies.
And so, Heather, you were in the 50s, but we have friends in their 20s, 30s, 40s that need assistance and need help. Things change as we age, mature.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your journey and what's going on, because last time we talked about divorce.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. I left that marriage. It was a 15-year unhealthy marriage, and I left that marriage about 2 years ago. So yeah, I've been single now for 2 years, and I've been dating for about a year and a half. Wow. And I've learned so much about myself. Of course, I learned a lot about myself being in that unhealthy relationship, but then I've also learned a great deal just like from dating. And, I've probably been on, if I had to guess, maybe 30 to 35 first dates, and 5 guys, like short-term relationships. Like, I think the longest one I had was 3 months. The others were like
Really?
6 weeks, 8 weeks. Yeah.
So, okay. So you date, you're going on these dates. That's a lot of dates, but
It's a lot of dates. A year and a half. No, not crazy.
When you go on these dates, and I knew right away. If I went, I could even talk to someone on the phone and go, I'm out.
Yes.
Or not. So
right.
Tell us about these dates and okay. Oh my gosh, I have so many questions. Tell us about these dates, but what is the most important thing or attribute in a man for you? What's number one?
Wow, that's a great question.
Is there?
For me, there's a lot of them, but I would say the one that kind of stands out the most is consistent communication, and just consistent with his actions, and that his words match his actions. Because a lot of men, a lot of guys, not all guys. No, I did not say all guys, because I think there are plenty of good men out there, but there are a few that their words won't match their actions, because in the beginning of dating, we're all wearing a mask. We're all trying to put on our best, put our best foot forward because we want the other person to like us. Like, that's human nature. Like, guys do it, girls do it. And so you really don't know who anyone is until you're with them over time. Like, so how are they going to show up consistently over time? And are their words going to match their actions?
Mm-hmm.
That's really important to me.
Really?
That just kind of shows like a man's integrity in their character,
Absolutely. Heather, how are you finding, with a lack of better words, how are you finding men, eligible bachelors?
Yep. Okay. How? Different ways. So I think the first most common way, and it's just like really the way people are doing it now, is dating apps, So I've tried a couple different dating apps. I've tried Bumble. I've tried Silver Singles. I've tried Millionaire Match. I've tried, I think that's it. Oh, the Facebook dating app. That's a good one too.
Oh,
you don't even have to pay for that one. So that one's free. But one of the best pieces of advice that I got from like a dating coach was, once you match with somebody on these dating apps, you want them to, ask for your number within like 48 hours to 3 days or whatever, because you don't want to just continue to be their pen pal. And then before they ask you on the first date, you want to do a video call with them before the first date, because there's been plenty of times where I've had the video call, and then after the video call, I've decided, I don't want to go out with that guy, because you really can't read a lot of energy through a photo, obviously. But if you get them on a video call, you can really sort of read their energy and just sort of see if you guys are vibing, see if, because I was like you said a minute ago, like you could tell within the first like few minutes of meeting someone if there's a possibility that you could really like them. And I'm the same way. I mean, if I get on a video call, and especially if I'm in person, I can tell within 1 minute if I think there's potential to really like the guy. It's like my intuition gives me an immediate yes or an immediate no. You know?
Oh, absolutely. And chemistry.
Exactly. And
can you tell chemistry through a camera?
A little bit. There's been several guys where I've had the most amazing video calls, and then we get in person, we have the date, and there's insane chemistry.
Wow!
But what I will say about chemistry is it's not the most important thing. You think it is when you're in your 20s and 30s, like, oh my gosh, is this guy hot? Like that's like probably what I was looking for when I was like a teenager and like early 20s. Like, oh, is this guy hot? Okay, that's like. Of course, you need to be attracted to them. I'm not saying you don't need to be attracted to them, but like their looks are not number one on my list anymore. Like above that is integrity and loyalty. And are they honest? And do we share the same values? Like, are they also family oriented? Do they also lead a God-centered life? Like things like that. Are they heavy, crazy drinkers and partiers? Because that's not me. So I'm not going to want to match with somebody who is like that.
Are men still in their 50s drinking and partying? I'm not drinking, but partying like rocks?
I mean, I think some of them are. None of the ones that I've gone out with have been like that, I don't think, because I think I'm really good at sort of asking the right questions in the beginning and weeding them out. But I did have one guy. I actually went on 3 dates with this guy, or maybe 2 dates. He was actually going to be cast to be one of the Golden Bachelors on the Golden Bachelorette. So like really nice looking man. I met him on Bumble. We had a great first date, and then on the second date, I did not drink alcohol. Well, we did. We drank on the first date. I think I had 2 drinks and he had a couple. But I was very open with him about how I'm not going to do that again, because in my past, I had been married to 2 men that abused alcohol, that I wasn't going to do that again. And so he was very honest with me on the second date and was like, you know what? I actually do have an issue with drinking. I'm just going to be honest with you. And I was like, thank you so much for your honesty. But, then there's no reason for us to go out again. But I really was like very appreciative and grateful that he was honest with me.
Wow. That is amazing. Okay. Go back to the video date. Is that a requirement for you before you go out with someone?
9 times out of 10, it is. Yes. Okay. Absolutely. Because again, I don't want to waste my time. Like I feel like our time is our most precious, what do they say?
Commodity.
Your most valuable commodity, right? So I don't want to waste my time going on a first date, unless I've had the video call, because then I can tell, like, do I really like him? Is this, should I go on the first date? So I think it's a good thing to do for all women, for sure, and men.
Did I tell you this, that I met Greg through dating? It wasn't an app. We've been married, it'll be 14 years in June.
Okay.
And Greg and I met through Selective Search.
You have told me that.
I told you that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I told you that years and years ago.
Yes.
It was very successful for us, but it was very different than this, because I don't think we were video calling then, but I couldn't see a picture.
Wow.
I was not the person that had the account, I guess you could say. So I was just in their database. Thank you, Oprah Winfrey. And then, so he was driving the bus, but I was like, I had a really bad date in Austin with a guy.
Okay.
Girl, there's not enough money. I mean,
oh my gosh.
I just have to tell y'all, because this happened. So I went out with this guy. And this is why I had to get a picture of Greg. I'm sorry. There's no chemistry. I'm into fitness. Let's just say that. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. And so we go out and he proceeds to tell me about his girlfriend of X number of years having an affair with her yoga instructor that is a female. Why would you say that first few sentences?
No,
and I'm like,
you
must have done something to make her do something differently.
Exactly.
And then he asked me, oh, you're going to have another glass of wine. I'm like,
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. You're like, yes, I am.
Yeah. So, you know what I mean? So, I mean,
Yeah.
that was just immediately. So I'm going to tell the men listening to this, I wouldn't come out of the gate that quickly with it, but maybe he was showing his colors and he saved me a lot of time.
Well, exactly. Yeah. That was a silver lining.
Silver
but I agree
lining.
that is kind of a red flag.
I mean,
to be that vulnerable that quickly.
But Greg, I talked to him on the phone and I knew it, and I walked off the elevator just down the street here. I was visiting from Austin, and I literally said, I've met my husband.
No.
I knew it immediately.
After one phone conversation?
We just saw this man out of the elevator and was like, this is it.
Wow.
I mean, this is it.
Amazing.
We were married a year later. So
love it.
But
I've heard that story that people say that they know quickly.
Yes, but there was no videotape. There was no video, but we finally talked. But anyway, so, okay. So go back to that. So are there women or men in your life that set you up with?
Yes. I've been set up. I can tell you a story. So I have the YouTube channel that you mentioned earlier, and I do talk a lot about fashion, but I've started talking about my dating life on there as well. And so one lady, she commented on one of my YouTube videos and she said, Heather, I've been a follower of yours for, a while, a couple years. And I know you might think this is weird, but actually my ex-husband, I think you would be a great match with. Are you open to being set up with him?
Wow.
And I was like, you know what? At first I was like, okay, yeah, this is weird. But then I was like, if she's going to recommend her ex-husband, he must be a decent guy. Because, I probably wouldn't do that. I probably wouldn't recommend mine. So I was like, you know what? I think I will do this. So I did. I agreed to go out with him. We went on a date. We had a great first date. And, it was wonderful. I met him there because I never let them pick me up on a first date. We went to a sushi restaurant. We had a great time. Then we got in the Uber together and I was going to have the Uber take me home. And then, he was going to sit in the car and then the Uber was going to take him home. Well, what he did was he jumped out of the car when the Uber got to my place and the Uber drove away. And I looked at him and I was like, well, where are you going? Like, you're not going up to my apartment after date one. Oh. And I was like, I guess we're going to go sit by the pool and hang out and talk until your Uber gets here that you're going to have to call since mine just left. And he was like, okay. So we did. And we had a second date. We played tennis together, which I think is a great second date. And then after playing tennis, he was like all sweaty. And he was like, oh, well, can I go back to your apartment and take a shower? And I was like, yeah, no, that will not be happening. And he was kind of mad. And he was like, why not? And I was like, first of all, I don't know you. I don't trust you. I've only been on 2 dates with you. And he didn't really understand that. And finally I was like, well, what would you tell your 12-year-old daughter? Would you tell her, like, when she starts dating, it's okay to let the guy take a shower? And then he was like, okay, I understand now. Okay. Touche. But, needless to say, he was a good guy, but just not my guy. So we did not see each other after that second date.
Which brings me to the question, do all men want sex right away?
I mean, all men want sex. I know that because, that's human nature. And do all men want sex right away? I'm sure they do. But here's the question. There are also some men that want sex, of course, because they all do, but then they also want to get to know you. And that's my job to figure out which one. Are you a man that wants sex and you want to get to know me? Or are you just a man who wants sex? Because I'm not interested in a man who only wants to sleep with me. I'm interested in a man who wants both because I want both.
Right.
I'm a woman too. I have needs too. I want both. I don't just want sex. I know some people can have casual sex. I cannot. There's a lot of chemicals that goes on in the brain, especially the woman's brain with the oxytocin and the dopamine and all that stuff that makes us fall in love. So as a woman, if we have sex too soon, we're not playing a fair game because then that will make us overlook some red flags. And so I'm very careful to not do that too soon. Have I made that mistake in the past? Yeah. And I've regretted it. Yeah. And it's caused me a lot of pain, which is why I won't do it again.
See, and you've learned, and you told me that when we had the podcast a year or so ago about how much you've learned about yourself. And I love that so much. We were talking before the show about serial daters. I have them in my life of every age. Like, they have to have a man or a woman.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think for a minute, Heather, there was a phase in my life in my 20s where I felt like I had to have a man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So tell us, we were talking about that. So tell us about that. Why would you?
For sure. I think what's behind that is your inability to feel the feelings, to feel the uncomfortable feelings when you break up with someone, you want to get right back into a new relationship because you just want to numb the uncomfortable feelings and the painful feelings that you had from that breakup. Instead of taking a break from the dating, feeling the pain of the previous relationship ending, but most people don't want to do that. So serial dating is just another numbing mechanism, like drinking alcohol, like gambling, like shopping, like spending too much money,
addicts,
like cocaine, like whatever. It's you're just dating constantly because you're not willing to sit and feel your uncomfortable feelings. And what happens if you do that, because I've done this, is then you just keep attracting the same man with different cologne. And you're not learning the lesson because you're not giving yourself enough time between people to feel the pain and learn the lesson of what you needed to learn.
Heather, you said that you found yourself attracted to, you couldn't break the cycle of wanting the same type of personality in a man. Do you feel like you've conquered that with therapy and self-help? And I mean, you shared so much on that podcast, y'all. We'll have to put it in the show notes, but podcast number 178, if you go back and listen, where you talked about, you even gave books as references and authors as references and dealing with divorce, of course, but learning about yourself. Do you think you've broken the cycle of the type of man?
I think I have, and here's how I know, because I've still continued to see my therapist. But, some people disagree on this, but, people say, and I do agree with this to an extent, you attract a mirror of what's going on inside of you. And I agree with that. But then I also agree with, you really can't help who's attracted to you. So I can't help who's attracted to me. What I can help is if I'm attracted to them. And then so what I've found in the last, if I looked at the last 4 guys that I've had those short-term relationships with, minus one of them was a saint and was like amazing and probably the healthiest guy I've ever dated. So we'll take him out of the equation. But the other 3 were, definitely they were attracted to me, but then, and they did have red flags and they were more of emotionally unavailable men. But the way I know I've kind of gotten over this hurdle is because once I saw the red flags of them being inconsistent with their communication or their words not matching their actions, instead of me trying to change them and hold on to them and chase them, I recognized that. I felt it in my intuition of this is not right. And then I ended the relationship. I didn't stay in it. And so I'm not staying in these relationships after I noticed a few red flags. And so that's good, because my therapist was like, I'd be worried if you were staying in these relationships and trying to change these men, but that's not what you're doing. You're breaking up with them. You're walking away from the relationship knowing that you deserve better because you have high standards and you've learned your lessons.
Do you think you can change a person?
No, I do not. And I made that mistake in both of my marriages, trying to do that, thinking that, if they loved me enough, or, if I could just get them to stop drinking, and then everything would be okay. And, what I've realized is getting anybody else to be something that you think you need them to be, at the end of the day, that's not going to make me feel okay. The only person that can make me feel okay is me on the inside. And so I've got to work on ways to self-soothe and regulate my emotions, and it's all tied to our childhood. It's like if you grew up in a childhood where you had, parents that fought a lot or parents that drank a lot, and there was unhealthy behaviors, whatever, then your nervous system is used to that. And so you'll seek it out when you're searching for partners. You'll seek out that chaos, those high highs and low lows. And if you find somebody who's healthy, and feels like a merry-go-round more than a roller coaster, then you might think like, oh my gosh, this person is boring. But like, really, that's just person isn't aligned with what you grew up with.
Do you sometimes think, okay, you were in 2 relationships here in the last year and a half that would last a long time. Do you often think that this is just too good to be true? You know what I'm saying?
About the other person?
Just, about ours. I mean, I'm thinking about, I've thought about this, like, this guy is just too good to be true. And the old part of me, there's a trigger that goes, it just can't be this good. Like I thought about Greg. Like I can't.
Oh.
Like,
that's amazing that you married that one.
And I married him. Yeah. I mean, I married him, but I interviewed him pretty hard.
That's pretty good. That's amazing. I don't think I've met that guy yet.
Okay.
I haven't met a guy where I've said to myself, he's too good to be true.
Okay.
But I will meet him.
You will. I know you will. You will.
I do too.
Okay. So we've talked about red flags. What's a red flag?
Yeah, to me, like the biggest red flag I noticed in with a couple of these guys is, they'll say things, like, oh, I really like you, I'm really into you, you're so beautiful, you're so this, you're so that. And then, maybe they're like a little bit inconsistent with their communication, or they're not really planning dates. Like only one guy did this to me, where I would call it more of a situationship than a relationship, meaning like we were not in a committed relationship. But our attraction and the chemistry was insane, off the charts, like more than I've had with anybody in my entire life. And yet he did not want a committed relationship. And he told me that from the beginning. So, hey, I respect his honesty. But then I realized my intention didn't align with his intention. So my intention was to be in a committed relationship. His intention was not. So then we didn't align with our intentions. And so, I tried to end it, and I would end it, but because he lived in my same building and I would run into him in the hallway, in the elevator, like blah, blah, blah. Oh. We would just, see each other. And then next thing I know, he's in my apartment and we're making out. And it's like, okay, this is not what I want to do, And so, that basically finally ended once I moved out of the apartment. And it was like, it's like trying to not do cocaine when you literally have a line of cocaine on your coffee table every day and you have to look at it. Like, how is that possible? But like what that taught me was like, hey, it's awesome to know that at 50 years old, I can still have this intense attraction towards somebody. Yes. So like that was awesome. And it also taught me that I love myself enough to not settle and be with a guy who doesn't want to be committed to me. Like that's not enough for me, not even close.
No. Oh my gosh. I have people in my life. Oh, they've been dating for years and years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
Years.
Yeah. Years.
And he won't commit.
Yeah. And that's whose fault is that? Whose fault is that?
It's
her fault.
It's her fault.
It's her fault. And it's hard, but it's really hard to say goodbye to somebody if you love them and you care about them, but you have to love yourself more than you love the other person, or you're going to continue to self-abandon. So what she's doing is she is self-abandoning herself. She isn't putting her needs before his needs. So if she really wants to get married, then she needs to end it with that person, because I always say when you end it with somebody, you make room for the right one to come along.
Yeah. Even after years and years.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Years. I mean,
even after years and years and years. It's never too late. It's never too late. And you're never too old, and it's never too late. I don't know who needs to hear that.
A lot of people need to hear that, because I see this so often and at every age span.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, I have someone my age.
Yes.
She is my age, and he just won't. He just won't. He just won't. Okay. Green flags.
Yes. Okay. Green flags. So one of the biggest green flags is knowing that I was able to go to this person and share my feelings. So I'll bring up Mr. Yellowstone. So he was a guy I dated for about 6 weeks. I'm surprised that right now I'm thinking so fondly of him, because what he ended up doing to me, which I'll tell y'all in a minute, you might think like, wow, how are you not so bitter towards him? But I think it's because I know God put him in my life to teach me a lesson. And I'm very grateful for the time I had with him, because I really did have really strong feelings for this man. And one thing I really liked about Mr. Yellowstone was that if I started to feel uncomfortable about something, I could call him and just say, hey, when you asked me to come see you, and he lived 2 hours away. So one time he was like, hey, can you come see me? But this was before we were boyfriend and girlfriend. So I wasn't comfortable going and visiting him. And so I decided to call him and have a conversation about it and say, hey, you know what? I'm not really comfortable visiting you until we become boyfriend, girlfriend, like not saying I want to do that yet. And he was just very receptive, and he allowed me to share my feelings with him. He didn't get angry. He just gave me space to share my feelings, to be vulnerable. So we had that really good, we were able to talk to each other, and I really valued that. So that's a huge green flag to me, just showing me that he could be emotionally available and give me room to share my feelings.
Right.
Because I had another guy who did the opposite, who, when I started to share my feelings, he immediately blame shifted, turned it around on me, and he didn't even validate my feelings. And he was just like, well, you did X, Y, and Z. And it's like, okay, clearly this man isn't able to have an adult conversation about feelings. Mm-hmm. And so that's a red flag. But the green flag would be somebody who does allow me to talk about my feelings, and them too. It's like, I share my feelings. Now, what feelings do you have coming up?
Wow.
So that was
you have learned a lot about yourself, haven't you?
Yes.
I mean, and people too, of course.
Yeah.
Wow.
Definitely. But really quick I'll just sum it up about Mr. Yellowstone, because you guys might be wondering, like, what did he do? What did he do? So, from the very beginning, and this is also what I'll say, is pay attention to your intuition in the beginning. If you get a no, you don't really need some hard evidence to like prove it. You know, if I would have listened to my intuition in the beginning, I could have saved myself a lot of pain, because what my intuition was telling me about Mr. Yellowstone was that he wasn't over his ex-girlfriend, because he continued to talk about her a lot, almost to the point where I had to say, listen, are you even over your ex-girlfriend? And what did you do to get over your ex-girlfriend? Which, by the way, that's a great first date question you can ask somebody, is like, what did you do to get over your last relationship? And their answer will tell you a lot about their emotional intelligence. Like, did you just immediately start dating again? Or did you take time to self-reflect and journal and see a therapist or whatever? Or even talk to a friend? Because like, I know a lot of guys don't go to therapy. But his answer was, oh, I just immediately started dating again. Ooh. Like, that should have been my red flag. He even said to me, oh, I can't be alone. Ooh. Which that's also a red flag.
Wow.
So my intuition was saying he is not over his girlfriend. Even when I asked him, he said he was, but then his actions weren't showing me that, because he continued to talk about her. Long story short, my intuition kept getting louder and louder and louder until on the day of, I think it was the day before New Year's Eve, I just felt so anxious that I just needed to end it with him. And because I felt this heavy feeling that he was talking to other women. And so I did. I said, I have to end things with you. And he's like, okay, well, I don't really know what I want as well. I think we rushed into things. So it ended. And then the next day I hear from a mutual friend of ours that he was already like back with his ex-girlfriend and talking with his ex-girlfriend. And then she called me like a week later and told me that he was emailing her the entire time we were dating, asking her to get back together with him. So my intuition was right.
It's your gut feeling.
It's my gut. It's God talking to us.
Always right. I know.
Absolutely.
Okay. Ending a relationship. And I think this, and maybe I'm wrong, but I hear a lot of this with Kennedy, my daughter's age group in their 20s, the text breaking up. How do you end relationships? And what is appropriate?
Good question. So I always say that you learn from your mistakes. You do not learn from what you do right. You learn from your mistakes. And so I had always said, absolutely, you know, before you break up with somebody, you obviously need to have a conversation with them in person if possible. If that's not possible, definitely on the phone. Mm-hmm. And so recently I made the mistake of sending a text to Mr. Austin guy, who is the healthiest man I've ever dated. He has the same name as my father, the same birth date. So like, that's crazy, right? But he's just a sweet, kind man. Anyways, he came back into Dallas. We had like a 3-month relationship and I broke it off because of the long distance thing. And then he came back in Dallas a couple of weeks ago and we saw each other and we had a great time. But then I started getting that feeling of like deep sadness and loneliness when he would leave, because he lives in Austin and he can't come to Dallas very often. He can only come like maybe twice a month. So I was like, this is not what I want to do. And even though we didn't like officially get back together, we were certainly acting like a couple when he came to visit 2 weeks ago. And I typed out the text to say, thank you so much for coming to visit me. I don't think I'm going to be able to continue to see you or talk to you because it's just too hard. You still live in Austin and I just need to do what's best for me. You know, thank you. And I sent it. And then his response was, wow, I can't believe you sent me a text and broke up with me on text, even though theoretically I didn't break up with him, but you get the gist.
Sure.
And then I felt the guilt and I felt so bad and I immediately owned it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. I'm so sorry. I totally messed up. My mistake. Will you please talk to me? And it took him a couple of days. He was like, I'm not ready to talk to you. And I had to respect his boundary. And then we talked a couple of days later and we had the most beautiful conversation and he forgave me. And, and I felt closer to him after we talked. And he also allowed me to share my feelings and he shared his feelings. So we had a great conversation, but I learned my lesson that no, it's not okay to send a text and break up with somebody. Okay. I don't think you need to definitely have that conversation, in person or on the phone.
Have you ever met anyone recently in a bar?
Well, I have met a couple people in a bar. I'll tell you a story about a guy I met in a bar. So, the first one that comes to mind is, a cowboy, and he was from Fort Worth, I think, or actually he lived in like, I think Irving or Arlington, but he like does horse shows in Fort Worth. Okay. So I was at Bobby's, which is this really neat restaurant in Dallas. And I was with a girlfriend and we were sitting at the bar, and in walks this guy wearing a cowboy hat, really handsome. And he definitely stood out because he had on a cowboy hat. And I kept looking at him and making eye contact with him. And then I would smile at him, because I say that's what you need to do if you want to meet somebody out in the wild, is you have to put your phone down and you have to look up and you have to make eye contact and you have to smile and you have to hold eye contact for like a little bit longer than what's comfortable. Like instead of 1 second, like maybe 3 seconds. Like you don't want to be like a psycho, but like 1 to 3 seconds. And then you want to do that multiple times so that they know you're interested, because what you're doing is you're opening the door and inviting them in energetically to come talk to you. And that's exactly what I did. And it worked. After maybe 4 times of us making eye contact and smiling, he walked right up to me and said, I would be an idiot if I didn't come over here and ask to buy you a drink. So he bought me a drink. He bought my girlfriend a drink. He stood there. We had the most amazing conversation for like 30 minutes. He asked me for my cell number. We went on a date. We had the most fabulous date. Such a good time. We went to Bobby's and then we ended up at the mansion dancing. And I'll tell you why I didn't give the guy a second date. Because he asked me on a second date, and then the day of the second date, he canceled it. We rescheduled it for Thursday. This was a Sunday, a Thursday of that week. Didn't hear from the guy until the Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. We're supposed to go out on Thursday. And his text said something like, sorry, it's taken me so long to text. I won't be able to go out till later tomorrow night, but just let me know if you still want to do it. And I'm thinking like, yeah, no. First of all, your energy behind this text was like very aloof. The fact that you didn't communicate with me for 4 days after our fabulous date, it was a no. So I said, you're right. I do want to I don't want to go.
Wow.
And then never heard from him again. So there you go.
There it is. I mean.
And that's what I'm talking about, inconsistent communication.
Might have had a secret life too.
Exactly.
Whoa.
Yes, exactly. So it is possible to meet men in the wild. I say, definitely put yourself out there, put your phone down, open up your eyes, look around, because you never know, but that doesn't mean you can't also be on the apps.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to share with you a few questions, because I get these questions. We put them on Instagram and say, what would you like to hear? Divorced people with kids have more baggage than those who never married.
I mean, you definitely obviously you have more baggage if you have kids, but I don't think that's necessarily a deal breaker. And, at my age, I'm 51, my kids are grown because I had kids early. My son's 27 and my daughter's 26. But would I date a guy who had a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old? I mean, I don't think I would let that be a deal breaker necessarily. Like if everything else checked the boxes, I think I could do it, but that's not my preference. Like I would rather meet a guy who's also an empty nester so that we're in the same stage of life. But
so let me tell you, Greg's 12 years older than I am, my husband. And the deal breaker for him was if someone had a child, a young child.
Wow.
Okay. Kennedy was 9.
Mm-hmm.
He met me and he's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you meet the right one, I think you can overlook that,
because not all children are alike.
Exactly.
Sure.
And because I love kids, and I would overlook. That's not a deal breaker for me. Now, if somebody comes up and says, I have issues with drinking,
sure,
that's a deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
If somebody says I don't believe in God, that's a deal breaker for me.
Well, sure. I'm not sure. Changing diapers at our age is
no. Yeah, or you have an infant. Yeah, maybe a deal breaker.
Why are we having an infant?
You can't hire a nanny. Yeah.
No. Men only want younger women, and we're talking more in our category.
Yeah, I love this question because I 1000% disagree, and I can prove it because I'm a 51-year-old woman who has gone out with, over 30 dates, more like 40 first dates probably, with men that are in their 50s. Yeah, some of them, I think the oldest guy I went out with was 64, but most of the guys I've gone out with have been 53, 52, 55. And I've even asked them that question, like, do you, only want like a girl in her 30s or, 20s or whatever? And they're like, no, actually, I'd rather a woman like you because we have more in common to talk about. Right. They were like, what I noticed is I had nothing to talk about with that young girl. So that's not true. But let me say this. If you're a woman in your 50s and that's what you think, like I totally believe in manifestation and law of attraction. If you have that thought in your mind of, all men only want young women, guess what? You'll only attract men who want young women. So if you want a man who is happy with your age group, then you can say, I attract emotionally available men who think I'm beautiful and fabulous no matter my age. That needs to be your mindset.
Wow. I love that. Okay. Question for you. This is putting you on the spot.
Okay.
How low will you go? Age.
Oh, age. So let's see, I'm 51. So I would go 5 years younger. So I would go 46.
No 20s.
No way. No way. Yeah.
I have a friend that's my age dating a 20-something.
Wow. Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I know, exactly.
No, I'm good.
I'm good. And then I would probably go 10 years older. So I would
You
go
would.
like 61, 62.
Yeah.
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 For
And
sure.
you know what? I think everyone they may not act or look their age either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's your energy that you exude. And I feel like I exude a very young energy. And so I'm going to attract, and all the men that I've attracted, the ones that are in their 50s, have also exuded very youthful energy, vibrant energy,
Yes.
fun energy. So, that's what
chemistry.
needs to match is your energy, not your age.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Another question is men only want younger women. I just talked about that. And then my other one, dating at this age, our age, is about finding someone to support you financially.
That's a good question. I'm going to like this. People are going to be like, oh, so I think I think that it is important that a man is able to provide for you. And yes, I'm looking for a man who can provide for me. But that's not the only criteria. And I'm obviously a successful entrepreneur, and I make my own money, and I make good money, as do you. So I'm not it's not like I'm broke looking for a man to take care of me, but I'm also not looking to go date a man who is broke, because I obviously want a man who is ambitious and driven and passionate about his career. And if he is all of those things, then naturally he's going to be blessed financially, usually, because most men who are that ambitious and successful, and driven by their passion are going to just naturally make money. And so, that's not like first on my list. You have to make a certain amount of money, and I don't have like a number put on it per se of like, he has to be a millionaire or whatever. Like, no, but he has to like be passionate about what he does. He has to be driven. He has to be successful and, be able to contribute to my current lifestyle, Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not ashamed to say that. And I think a masculine man wants to take care of a woman.
Absolutely.
And I'm a feminine woman who wants to just sit back and receive. And if anybody who thinks that makes me a bad person, will go right ahead. I don't have to marry you if you think that. And you don't have to marry me.
I have a feeling you're going to find that person after this podcast. I just have a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
But like, of course, the important things to me are more about your character and your values and your integrity.
Okay. Are there any suggestions that you would have, or have you dated someone that is widowed?
I have dated a guy that was widowed. He was actually the very first man I dated out of my marriage, and he was going to be my financial advisor, but because we dated for 2 months and it ended, then he was not my financial advisor. I would say, and that ended because of my anxiety, because I don't think I was ready to date. And how I knew I wasn't ready to date is because I was so anxious when he wouldn't reach, like, we were together one night, had this most amazing date. It was probably our 5th or 6th date. And then I think I texted him in the morning, and then I didn't hear back from him for a couple of hours, and my anxiety went through the roof. That's how I knew I wasn't ready to date, because so what? He's not texting you back for a few hours. But the story I made up in my head was, oh my gosh, this guy doesn't like me anymore. Oh my gosh, I'm so uncomfortable that he isn't responding. He's rejecting me. What am I going to do? Like, literally, I was very shocked by my emotional reaction. But that, now I come to understand that was just, a symptom of just getting out of an unhealthy marriage. I really wasn't ready to date. I needed to just sit in those uncomfortable feelings and like self-regulate, maybe go on a walk, maybe take a bath, maybe do some breath work, tools that I have now to do to self-regulate, but I really didn't have those then. And so anyways, we ended up not working out. But as far as him being a widow, I don't think that had anything to do with it.
Right.
And I don't think I dated him long enough to really understand how it would be to date somebody who is a widow. So besides him, I haven't dated anyone else.
Yeah.
But I would be open to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a bad thing.
Right. Exactly. Have you ever been cheated on?
Yes, my first husband cheated on me, and it was very painful, and it was hard. It was difficult. It was awful. It sucked. I was mad. I was sad. I was, all the things, all the emotions. And then what that does is it breaks your trust with that person. And so I felt like I could never trust him again. And I know that there's many people that have stayed married, because I have friends that have stayed married through infidelity. And I'm not saying not to do that. But for me, and there were other issues going on in the marriage, because what I always say too is anytime you cheat on someone, that's just a symptom of what's going on underneath that. So what was going on underneath that, was a whole other can of worms, addictions, drinking, gambling, all these things. And so, it was just an unhealthy dynamic, and it's difficult, and I don't wish it on my worst enemy, but it's hard.
It's hard. Greg had someone in his life that cheated on him. Mm-hmm. And when we started dating, he didn't trust.
It's really hard to trust again.
Oh.
Because what we all do is we bring our past relationships into our current one. And if we're not aware of it, so he did that when he
did that in the beginning. And I remember going, I'm going to go my dinner with my girlfriends. I was living in Austin. He was here. And he's like, no. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Like, what
going out with my gay friends. Mm-mm. They don't want me.
Yeah.
They're
just gay.
Yeah. He expected me to flirt with men when we went to dinner. He expected me that I was going to wear low cut.
Why? He expected you to?
He expected that was what's going to happen because his previous person did that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. His expectations were like, all women do this.
Yes.
And that I would wear provocative clothes. And I had to break that cycle. And how I did this, y'all, was for him to trust me. Mm-hmm. It wasn't going out with, not going out with I didn't break my personality or my, who I was. But it was over time. Mm-hmm. And it took some time because it was very painful for him.
Yeah.
And I saw a therapist, and she just said, you know what? Just gain his trust back if it's worth it to you.
Right.
And it was very much worth it. And the man trusts me so much now.
Oh, that's so good. Well, and it's beautiful that he was able to share that with you, because that's what was underneath. I always say there's always a thing beneath the thing. Mm-hmm. So the thing beneath the thing was he was scared that you were going to go cheat on him. Yes. And of course he was, because he's been cheated on. So then it's beautiful that he told you that versus never telling you that. And then you're just wondering, why are you always so controlling and jealous? Right. There's something underneath it. So if you can always get to the root of it, then we can have better relationships but we just have to be willing to be vulnerable and share those feelings with our partner.
Right. Heather, I've talked to you and we're friends and I've shared this with you, but I'm going to ask you this. In your dating journey, would you do it again? Would you marry again?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would. Absolutely. I don't even need to think about that. And I know some people, even my therapist was like, wow, like after all that you've been through, like I'm surprised that you're so willing to put yourself out there. Now, I say that to but then also is it scary? Absolutely. Even when I start to date, the few guys that I've dated that have, turned into something, even though it was short term, they still meant a lot to me. And I had really strong feelings for these couple of guys. And I found myself becoming scared because now I'm like, oh, if I like you this much, then guess what? That means you can hurt me. And I found myself starting to cry and just be like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. But then I just have to calm myself down and realize like, this is coming from the past. Mm-hmm. This isn't my current situation. That they haven't hurt me yet. I don't know that. I don't have evidence of that. So that's just a story I'm making up in my mind. And so, is it going to be perfect with my husband when I meet him? Of course not. I'm not expecting perfection, but I am expecting a man who's done the work and who's a healthier version of himself as I am a healthier version of myself. And then together we can kind of come together. And I would love to be married one day. I think marriage is an amazing thing. And I want a partner. I want somebody to connect with and to be with and to
I know.
grow old with.
And you are quite the catch. I'm telling you. Well, I know that personally.
Thank you.
You and I talked about this before the show, and I've talked to you about it before. I say this, I will never do it again. And I'm happily married. I am so blessed with a fabulous marriage. I love Greg. And you said something before the show don't want to be lonely.
Yes.
There's that.
For sure.
There's that.
Yeah, because I do feel lonely sometimes. This is the first time in my life since I was, for the last 2 years, I've lived alone, I've never lived alone before because I got married right out of college the first time at age 19. And then I had kids right away. And then, I got divorced and then my kids lived with me. So yeah, I've never lived alone. And so it is lonely sometimes. Yeah. And I do crave that connection and I'm a very my love language is affection. And so I do crave holding hands and snuggling and hugging and all those things and reaching over in the bed and oh, there he is. I love him. I kind of envision that sometimes when I'm laying there alone because I think it's good to kind of envision what you want for the future. I think that's a good manifestation tool, but yeah, it is lonely and sometimes, and I think that's okay to admit that I get lonely and sad sometimes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think you're fabulous.
Yes. Well, thank you.
I mean, I do.
You're fabulous.
And I'm so proud of the work that you've done post this past, your second divorce and just how far you've come. And I met you before COVID and just where you were at that point, unhappily married and sharing with me. And, we're all friends. I mean, we are blessed to have great influencer friends, Instagram friends, but we're more than that.
Absolutely.
And sharing your story with your audience and mine.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. No, I think it's good to be vulnerable and just make it seem like I'm more of a real person. And somebody recently asked me oh my gosh, you sit on here and you talk about your dating stories and why are you still single? Trying to shame me as if it's a bad thing that I'm still single. And it's here's my answer to that, which is the healthier that I get, the smaller of pool of men that I'm going to attract and be attracted to. And that's okay because guess what? I don't need 10 men. I just need one. And God has him and I don't want 10. And God has my man for me. He has my husband already picked out for me.
Yeah.
And, it's just you have to be on the same emotional level as the other person. I had a therapist tell me once, twos don't marry tens. And I'm not talking about looks. I'm talking about emotional intelligence. So if you have the emotional intelligence of a 7 or an 8, you're not going to be attracted to somebody who hasn't done any work on himself and who's a 2 or a 1. That's just not going to jive. And so because I've done the work on myself, I'm certainly not a 10, but I would say I'm probably a 7 or an 8 because of the work that I've done and everything. And I'm self-aware. So that's who I'm going to attract. And that pool of men is just smaller. And so it might take a little bit longer, but it's all in God's timing. And I trust that. And so I'm not worried about it. I gave it to God and I just know with all my heart that, I'm going to meet my husband. And right now, though, my time right now, this very moment, I'm supposed to be single and I'm supposed to be sharing the lessons I'm learning to help others. That's what I know.
Well, I'm so proud of you. And I'm so happy of the work that you've done. And my goodness, if you have not followed her, do so now because Heather has so many great fashion tips and life tips too on your YouTube channel. And watch us on YouTube as well because we both are in this industry together and we enjoy it and we support each other. But thank you so much for sharing for so many fabulous women and men.
Yes. Well, thank you. And thank you for having me. And I admire and respect you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay. How can we find you?
Yes. So on YouTube, I am just my name, Heather Anderson. And on Instagram, I am So Heather Blog. And then my website is soheather.com.
Thank you so much. And everyone, I hope you got something from this podcast today because you've been asking for it, all you people out there dating. And you know what I say every single Tuesday? I say it and I say it. Keep being fabulous.